Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to InspireXT Connected Intelligence Live. I'm Kuldeep, I'm your host. I am the founder and MD of InspireXT. We are a firm helping mid to large enterprise businesses to transform their supply chain and operations by leveraging technology such as Oracle and Litmus and many others by connecting them. And today's conversation I'm very excited about. I'm joined by some of my industry colleagues and InspireXT colleague whom I'll introduce shortly. But I just want to say a few things about what we are going to talk about today. Uh, there is a certain change that is ongoing of late. Leaders are dealing with a certain complexity. There's a lot of investment in experimentation of AI projects. Some have succeeded, many are frustrated, and it's not really a failure, but it is a cause of concern that how long will you continue doing that? So therefore, the mood and the desire essentially is changing across the industry. Business leaders are not necessarily challenging the technology, they're just rebalancing, asking why has this effort and investment not really transpired or translated into some sort of a consistent better execution. And that is why we think today's conversation is key. The question isn't whether it is this technology or that technology, it's really where does the intelligence sit so that it can make our operations and executions more efficient, drive better execution and better decisions. And too often we find that people are bolting intelligence or AI on the sidelines, or they're far away from the reality, or they're introduced without due consideration for the human change or how they will be embraced by the very people who are supposed to be benefited from it. So we will unpack more practical approach about how to embed intelligence into executions in a way that is sustainable, that is usable, scalable, and more importantly, trusted. And I'm joined by three leaders who I think see this challenge from very different angles, but highly complementary angles as well at the same time. Will, Jay, and Rajiv, I will ask you to introduce yourself briefly, and after that, we'll get straight into the questions and more insights. So maybe we start with you, Will.
All right, thanks, Kuldeep. Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. My name is Will Knight. I'm responsible for partnerships at Litmus. And Litmus provides a lot of the connectivity, contextualization, and transformation of data for different applications and users and systems in the industrial manufacturing space. So good to see everyone.
Thank you, Will. Jay, over to you.
Thanks, Kuldeep, and hello to everyone. My name is Jai Suri. I'm at Oracle. I've I built products in the manufacturing and manufacturing execution space. My Our team has a strong legacy of building software for this industry. We're part of the ERP team, so we've decades of experience building software that is used by tens of thousands of manufacturers across the world, and it's exciting to work with new partners like InspireXT and new technologies like Litmus. So excited to be here.
Excellent. Over to you, Rajiv.
Hi, hello everyone. It's my repeat visit here, Kuldeep. Thanks for inviting again. I think I'm doing something all right, which got me a repeat invitation. But
Awesome.
I lead the markets for InspireXT and have the pleasure of working not only with our customers and prospects, but also partners like Oracle and Litmus. So it's pretty exciting conversation topic today. So looking forward to it.
Excellent. Welcome, all of you, and let's have a great conversation. I think in this um, in this group, there's decades of experience, lived experience, and some war stories and some useful anecdotes. So we'll try to talk about. In fact, why don't we start with some sort of a human context and partnership lens before we go into a bit more detailed. And Will, maybe I can start with you. You've spent um,
Oh,
this. That's that's what happens sometimes. Technology is a wonderful thing. It works ultimately. So, Will, coming back to you, could you share with us, our audience, maybe one fun or an unexpected fact about you that people wouldn't normally know or hear in manufacturing discussion?
Yeah, I would say probably I have a dichotomy of background where I actually started on the IT side um, uh, for just right around 15 years with Microsoft. So many times people think, well, I actually created a lot of the problems I'm trying to solve on the OT space. So now I've been on the OT side for just over 10 years and really appreciate, I think the challenges on both sides. You
Yeah,
know, part of the IT folks who are tend to push for more agility, more experimentation, more flexibility, and then balancing that on the IT side with a big focus on obviously safety, resiliency, consistency.
yeah.
And then how do you balance that? So sometimes I joke that I created a lot of the problems today that I'm trying to work with manufacturers to solve.
Well, you are honest. That is a great start, and with that comes great solutions as well. So, um, a little bit about this partnership or discussion when you started working with obviously Oracle and then lately with InspireXT. What struck you the most, and how do you think this combination could help our customers and prospects achieve their goals?
Yeah. Well, you know, part of any new technology, which Litmus represents, is building on a solid foundation. So what we do see with Oracle customers is that they've really built a solid, many times financial supply chain management ERP foundation. And when you have that strength there and have standardized some of your operations, your financials, it enables you to do much more quickly. So I think that's a common theme we tend to see with Oracle customers is a strong technology foundation, plus a very strong maturity in how they think about growing, expanding, and improving their business. And then ultimately, any technology is limited by the ability to implement and support that, which ultimately comes down to a partner like InspireXT. Because even after the selection is really just the start of the journey, the selection of the technology, it's really about how you implement it with people who are using it on site. And I think that's the differentiator that InspireXT brings is that deep domain expertise, not just with the technology, but also with the people and processes where we're landing that technology.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, you know, implementing is of course important, and doing it right is important, but also technology evolves daily, weekly, quarterly, unlike previous eras. And a strong foundation of partnership is helpful because through that transition, customers have a reliable sort of options to and help available to them to adopt that transition and change. So awesome, great. I'll move on to Jay. Um, Jay, you said you've been in product engineering and design and software development for a while. Um, so, what is one thing about you that doesn't make that conversation?
So yeah, I mean, I've been in product strategy, product development, product design for many years now, and one of the reasons I enjoy this field is just because of a natural love for curiosity, love for exploration, and problem solving. So that curiosity and that love for exploration also spills into my personal life in terms of reading. So I'm a big fan and a nerd of the Lord of the Rings books. So you can question me about any of the characters or any of the journeys that they take. And Tintin comics, I don't know if you know about them, but I'm a huge fan of all Tintin comics and which historical fiction, but basically anything that has to do with stories of adventure, discovery, exploration.
Well, that sounds like a discussion on its own for another
On its
time.
own, absolutely. You'll need
I'll,
3 hours though.
I'll look for that opportunity. But from your perspective, obviously Oracle is transforming. It's been around the block for decades, and there's a lot of investment in this engineering and research going on all the time. But how, what do customers gain when things like edge intelligence that we hear a lot often now than we used to before, uh, as well as built-in AI now in Fusion, which is quite a welcome addition to the platform in
Yeah.
Fusion. When these all things come together as a working solution, what do customer experience? What do they gain in that? And conversely, what do they lose if that is not there?
Yeah. I mean, we've all heard this often enough, and it's almost a cliche now that real-time operational intelligence is a game changer, and but we truly believe that, and especially now with this built-in AI, and one of the big foundations of our strategy around AI at Oracle is not bolted on, but built-in
Yeah,
AI in Oracle Fusion. So that's going to drive tremendous amount of value, especially with real-time intelligence. I mean, in the older days, not too long ago though, and even now, people make decisions or made decisions of reports of dashboards that were days old or sometimes even weeks old, and by the time they looked at the data, by the time they evaluated the information, the window to drive any significant impact from that analysis had passed.
yeah,
So you were really retroactively looking at something that had happened. And the truth is that the higher the latency of the data that is being analyzed, the less valuable the resulting decisions are going to be from that. And even the actions that you take will have very little impact as the latency of the data increases. So by integrating intelligence such as, say, Litmus, edge intelligence facilitated by them, with Oracle Fusion, you get real time, like for example, in manufacturing, you get real time events from the shop floor, whether it is machine anomalies, production rates, inventory levels. It could be operator check in, check out, you name it. I mean, there's so many other. The factory floor is full of events that are happening in real time. By integrating those events into Oracle, we can analyze those events many times using AI to kind of get deeper insight. So teams get alerted not only when something goes wrong, but proactively if to kind of drive automation to anticipatory workflows, which can kind of simplify how the processes work and make it far more efficient.
yeah,
So those recommendations and those anticipatory responses that you get from AI are a real game changer from that point of view.
yeah,
Um, let's say, I mean, you're a manufacturer with dozens of assembly lines across the globe. So edge devices with a harmonized technology like Litmus and Oracle, you could deploy them across all of your environments very seamlessly and replicate these things. And then you can easily start creating scenarios where we're collecting sensor data from devices, from machines, and then detecting things such as subtle vibrations
yeah,
in machines, which then Litmus can analyze to then determine whether this is an anomaly that requires some sort of maintenance. Is there a work order currently executing on that machine, which we can figure out, which can contextualize it to that. So
yeah,
by integrating those events to us, we can drive tremendous amount of value by saying there is a work order that's running on it, but this machine is not behaving well, which is going to lead to quality events. So let's reschedule this to another equipment and create a maintenance work order for this.
Yeah.
So creating the anomaly is the first step, but there is a tremendous amount of workflow value that you can drive by integrating that into Oracle and automating some of these processes. So I'm pretty excited about the product.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from supply chain world, I mean, what you just described, if you kind of just look at the opposite side of that and say, well, ultimately the shop floor is serving some sort of a customer demand. And if you're making those decisions a week later, day later, you know, as a retrospective, and the customer is still waiting, then there's a clear value to be had by that automation and intelligence that you could complete the value chain. So, of course, great examples, and thank you for that. Rajeev, let me bring you in. You have spent much of your career orchestrating between the products and
I'm sure he'll come back. So
yeah,
okay. We have
um,
seen this uncertainty.
I don't think Ethernet is of much help, so I'll go back to wireless very soon. But it probably senses that when I'm about to ask a question, give me a cutoff. I think that's. But just coming back to you, Rajeev. You know, you worked with major IoT players. You worked with large technology vendors in the past, and you've been at the sort of mediating roles of how to bring all these IT, OT, ET, all that great technology together. So you could also share with us some fun fact about you, some unexpected fact, and you could then go into how does this power of three, the Oracle, Litmus, and InspireXT teamwork or the solution play, what do customers gain and what do customers, how do they feel the experience of this relationship?
Yeah, no, thank you. I've been, there's no a major fun fact. I was glad Jay mentioned about Tintin. That's one of my favorites as well. But I, probably am giving up my age when I say I started with DEC. I'd probably Jay, I don't know, Will or Jay, you know about DEC, one of the
Oh, yes.
fascinating companies. And then, but I've learned the nuances of manufacturing excellence and operations through my interaction with customers. Otherwise, other than discussing those kinds of things, coming to these sessions dressed a bit formally, I'm pretty much relaxed in my outfit. But thanks to Kuldeep for inviting me over and over again. But I really appreciate the sessions that we have with people like Jay and Will. But essentially, I've seen organizations make strategy, but then execution often takes a back seat. I mean, not always, but sometimes because the things are changing so fast. There is uncertainty involved in whatever organizations go through. But the gap between a strategy and execution exists. It's not a lack of ambition or anything like that, but there is there are certain things that the organizations have to really think on their feet in terms of being responsive to the market. There are certain metrics, on time and in full fulfillment is a great metric to have. But I think the having a loyal customer and the cost to service that is even more that companies are looking for. And things like edge intelligence and the power of three you talked about, the best of the breed. I think Oracle has spent years and years in creating certain platform.
Yeah, 48 years to be precise, I think.
How much?
48 years.
Yeah, exactly, years and years. And then people like Jay who've been practitioners, and they have people who industry best practices are in the platform. So that coming into focus with platforms like Litmus, I think it gives an end-to-end insights into the value chain of any firm. People and companies like ourselves, so we are also practitioners. We understand the business processes really well, and putting all these things together for the benefit of the customer, because some of the things the customers may kind of put under the carpet because they probably don't realize what's priority for them, and how do you really assess the maturity where they are today and where they want to be. We kind of complement and supplement that along with our partners like Oracle, Litmus, and Databricks, for example. So I've seen that very closely, talking to customers in terms of how the strategy comes down to the execution and actually the technology, and how do we really look at that angle together.
Yeah. And I think just sort of ending this segment with this, I think what you all described beyond the fun facts is really quite a useful insight that I usually talk to prospects and customers, is that this whole best of breed is a great way to, you know, talk about modern and all that. But I often ask customers, how far away does it take you from your core business? Do you then start becoming a system integrator because you're using best of breed, or do you let it come together through expertise and just guide and own the outcome and have the accountability to lead? And I feel sometimes that's overlooked because everybody wants, not everybody, but most people want to have the shiny object, and they forget that there is a business to be run and there is an architectural security and data, all those disciplines as well. So that's great. Let's move to our next segment. I have some questions for how can we help uh, embed intelligence into execution. So, Will, I will come back to you. You've been listening for some time now, so it's your turn to uh, help us unpack this. Um, what distinguishes a an organization that has successfully embedded intelligence into operations or shop floor execution from those that remain stuck in silos or pilots or never ending sort of target operating model?
Yeah, I think um, a couple of things that we typically see is we do see a lot of pilots and siloed initiatives that do get stuck. I'd say 99 times out of 100, it gets stuck because people look at it and say, well, let me see if I can implement this technology on an individual line or for this particular asset or for this particular site. And knowing at the same time that of the 200 plants they have, probably all of them are unique. And so they want to make it successful to prove the business case. But really, what we see as the biggest challenge is actually scaling and replicating that solution across the other 199 sites. So actually, the largest problem to solve is how do you replicate and scale in a meaningful way and in a timely way that enables you to really transform the business across the people and the processes that you do have. Many times we'll see organizations that will implement the first site, very custom deployment. They'll get to the second site, deploy, the third site, deploy. And then they've actually learned a lot of new things in the first three sites, and they want to make adjustments and changes. So then they have to go back to the first site, kind of start over, and then the second site start over. So they never really get a full enterprise deployment.
So,
And that's where we encourage customers to think back and go, well, first, if you can solve for the scale deployment problem, which most companies do when they think about an ERP or supply chain system, or they think about a standardized system, even on the IT side, they think about, yeah, of course, I'm going to run this across the enterprise.
yeah.
So we encourage customers to think about an enterprise holistic deployment and then actually do a use case that might span 3 or 5 sites to prove that it can scale and solve the business problem at the same time. Because if you can solve both of those, it ultimately gives you the insight you want, and it gives you the speed and breadth of deployment that you want across the enterprise. So you actually really need to solve two things in that initial pilot, the business case itself and the ability to scale.
Yeah. All right. Well, I heard from you, or I learned from you initially, that there is a specific approach that Litmus deploys, the horizontal versus vertical deployment strategy. Um, I think that's what you're implying here, but for our audience, maybe could you throw a little bit more light as to what that is and how it enables organizations to go maybe slower to begin with, but then really scale and go fast?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one way I describe it to customers and partners is that a lot of times customers come to us and they go, "Wow, we want to do these 3 use cases at a single site," and we go, "Wow, that's interesting." And absolutely, you can do those 3 use cases in most instances because you have a lot of people with a lot of focus to make this successful. But at the same time, we go, well, what if you could take one use case and replicate it across your 200 sites? Actually, the net increase is 200 use cases, in an absolute term, versus maybe 3 use cases at one site, or even 3 use cases at 3 sites, and equaling 9. So we really try to talk to the customer about the power of that scaling out across the sites, not just talking about that individual use case, but the ability to have a common conversation across an enterprise, whether that be a unified dashboard, unified discussion around capital deployment, a unified discussion around productivity across products, shifts, and sites. It's much more powerful than having 3 great use cases at your lighthouse plant. And so that's when we think about a vertical deployment, is when you have 3 or 5 use cases at one site, versus a horizontal deployment of maybe 1 or 2 use cases across 200 sites. The value across the enterprise very much compounds itself.
Yeah, I think that.
Let me add to that, Kuldeep. This is a message that I've heard very frequently from customers and continue to hear that. What Will said, many OT/IT integration projects fail to scale, and many of our customers have plants which are global. You work with many of those guys who have plants in Europe and US and Asia and so on, and they may pick one factory and get things working over there, but when they try to scale to other factories, it's very difficult to do, and especially because with OT environments, it's not as harmonized as IT environments, where the cloud has brought a lot of harmonization of technology. OT still tends to be a bit of a wild west, and where that's one of the things we tell customers, that this is bringing in technologies like Litmus and cloud or ERP cloud are a great way to kind of have a single platform that you can scale and replicate across your factories. But given the current landscape, it is definitely a big challenge for a lot of customers, and this is an area that definitely needs a lot of attention and problem solving.
Yeah, and I thank you for sharing that, both of you. I feel one is that the problem is understood, but it's probably not described very well sometimes. And it's also that there's lack of education about what the possibilities are there now, because technology, and as you said, cloud has sort of standardized the app side of it. So it's going to resonate with a lot of the people, that may be dealing with similar scenarios. So thank you for sharing that. And Jay, if I could continue with you, I think you touched about this in the earlier segment as well. And as I said, Oracle is now 48 years old, and I think it's roughly, I don't know, late 90s onwards, the application also came along, the rich heritage of EBS, process manufacturing, discrete, and now Fusion. How does this idea of a real operational intelligence change that quality and speed of execution at scale? So we talked about the benefits and all that, but what does that scale look like, and how does it actually happen, and how do we try to make sense of EBS versus OPM versus discrete, and a lot of people are still on that older sort of platform.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the work methods are concerned, whether it is discrete or process or flow, obviously a lot of the selection of that work method depends on what you're manufacturing and how your factory works. So our goal is obviously to provide the customer with the right set of tools that can adapt to the way they work. So if we don't try to, a part of the philosophy of product building at Oracle is you don't adapt to our processes, we adapt to yours.
Yeah.
So we are building maximum flexibility in the cloud. And one of the things with EBS, with eBusiness Suite earlier was, by virtue of it being on-prem, you had a lot more control over how you could customize it. You had tremendous flexibility in terms of building extensions, building configurations, and customizations into it. But you lose some of that in the cloud, because cloud, I mean, you gain a lot of advantages, but at the same time, you lose some flexibility because we're managing, it's a managed SaaS. It's fully managed SaaS. So you get tremendous amount of advantage as a result of it, but you lose some of the flexibility in terms of what you can build as customizations. In EBS, you can do pretty much anything you want. You have access to the database. In the cloud, you don't. So one of the big things we've done in the cloud has been to provide maximum flexibility in terms of configurations and how customers can customize their processes. We now support discrete. Obviously, we're adding a tremendous amount of features for complex discrete workflows as well. We have added support for flow manufacturing, which is a lean manufacturing model for extremely repetitive, high volume production. We added tremendous amount of features for process. So process was an area where Fusion Cloud was still a little, I think, behind, but now we have support for formula. You have support for a whole bunch of features that you didn't have earlier. So tremendous amount of investment going into process manufacturing, especially in the last year. So we are really excited about where Fusion is in comparison to what EBS was earlier. You have, I think at this point, the value you get from Fusion far exceeds the value of staying on an on-prem EBS system. But that, even beyond that, now with AI Studio, things just kind of go into hyperdrive in terms of the value you can derive from Fusion Cloud. But in terms of execution, they asked about MES and how does Fusion fit in vis-a-vis MES?
We'll talk about that as well. I mean, just on the manufacturing side, Jay, and for someone like me who's risen through Oracle process manufacturing and EBS and formula and recipe, and then having Fusion deliver even better capabilities and coupled with the AI Studio, I think and then you touched on Litmus and the integration aspect of it. I think the possibilities now are just endless, and it's a great time to leverage that capability. I believe, because not only you are improving the manufacturing operations, you're actually part of a bigger and broader data model to be able to leverage and influence other sides. And in fact, that's kind of my next question to Rajeev is talk about connecting commerce to commerce signals to some issue happening there. You can hear me all right?
Yeah, good.
Okay, good. I think this is absolutely a theme today. Every question has a signpost of some.
Yeah, it is perfect timing every time.
It's a perfect timing. So So we talk about this connecting commerce signals to operations and demand and service and all that. What can you bring to life, maybe through some example, as to, let's take Litmus as well for operations, the fusion side and other matters. What does it actually really mean in real life for people who may have heard about this but don't know what we mean by this?
Yeah. Yeah, I think from my or our perspective, what we see, and I personally have dabbled in IT and OT. Someone, Jay, you mentioned about MES versus smart ops and ERP and MES, the whole debate that's going on for years. But our DNA, from our perspective, is commerce to operations. I think we see the demand signals are coming in from for organization. Finally, it's the fulfillment, right? From what the customer wants or the world wants and what the organizations are addressing. I mean, we follow it from a very structured approach. We have some methodologies and stuff like that, but our mission is to connect sales and service to the operations finally, whether it is service returns available to promise for people to look at the data available for them to make decisions. And I think that whole three layers coming together from the front office, whether it is a signal coming from your point of sale, as simple as point of sale, or some of the social media these days, and AI or agentic AI, everywhere these days. So, from that, and how do you orchestrate the whole demand to servicing an order and stuff like that? I think that is something that we have seen very clearly, and we address that based on some of our connected solutions and themes. But with Litmus, Oracle, and a little bit of business process knowledge that we bring to the table coming together, I think it becomes pretty compelling scenario for our customers. From a edge side of thing, there is intelligence available on the edge for operators and plant managers to look at real time versus having a reactive way of addressing them. On ERP, there is obviously a lot of AI inbuilt in the processes today. You talked about manufacturing operations and the smart manufacturing. That is obviously a given in terms of using an Oracle. And then how additional intelligence, the topic today is intelligence and embedding intelligence at various stages. Um, Databricks, for example, brings another layer of intelligence and insights that uh, is available to it. So it becomes a kind of a categorization from a descriptive intelligence to a predictive intelligence to even a prescriptive intelligence, right? So I think from that perspective, we are at a cusp, and I dabbled with IT and OT maybe 5 years. We were probably ahead of our times that time, but I think this timing is right in terms of people and customers really wanting to do something beyond the commerce to operations and
Yeah.
extending it beyond to the shop floor. And our connected shop floor, for example, is a step in that direction as well. So
Yeah. And I think it's really just uh, one is just to kind of connect the pieces together, but then I think the theme that we heard from Will and also from Jay is this whole scalability, but also replication at scale
that's
across
it.
the business, and um, having intelligence at the right sort of connections, as it were, and agentic kind of experience where you could allow these various technologies to interoperate but also interact and solve problems. That is the whole commerce to operations reality, because now you're, no matter how hard organizations try, it cannot always be 100% seamless. You don't actually want it to be 100% seamless, but you do want the data to flow seamlessly. So you want some human in the loop, and um, many places the experience breaks because there is no human in the loop, but also there's no automation in the loop. And I think that's where intelligence at scale starts to address some of those problems, and then you can replicate. And if I may, you touched on connected shop floor as one of the examples. And if I turn to Jay, and I think you started talking about MES, I think this is a question that you probably have answered 1,000 times, but I'll ask you 1,001st time as a customer. That I already got MES and I've had it for as long as I can think of. So why do I need to change, and what do I gain, so on and so forth. And I think it's almost not, it's not dismissing the possibility of a reality of a possibility. It's almost I don't know what better it can do for me.
Yeah, that's a fair question, and something, as you said, we get that often. But also we get a question often about, should I invest in an MES? Because it's not a given that a lot of customers are using MES, or they may have a question about, I have 10 different MES systems.
Yeah.
I rarely come across customers who will say that I have 40 factories and I run one MES across all of my factories. It's a very rare thing to ever see that. Most of the cases, the uh, the local teams will pick, the local OT teams will pick an MES that works best for them. So this definitely leads to like the issues we mentioned about challenges in scaling architecture beyond one plant, and scaling use cases, or scaling that the collection of data and driving decision making in a single way across all plants. So you may be able to make decisions at one place, but you can't really do that across the plant. So that's one obvious disadvantage of MES, that they tend to be extremely localized. Our goal over here, and we introduced a set of tools that we call Oracle Smart Operations to drive digital manufacturing, especially manufacturing operations capabilities. These are part of Oracle Fusion Cloud. And basically, you just buy manufacturing, and smart operations is part of it. And this is the component that integrates well with Litmus, essentially, by leveraging IoT. It has AI built in and so on. Well, it's not an MES, and we do get a question: is smart operations MES? So we specifically guide our customers to say we're not creating an MES. What we're delivering is manufacturing execution features from the cloud. So it's designed to deliver many of the same features that an MES delivers. I mean, if you can think about what typical features that an MES would provide, it says real-time production monitoring, quality management, traceability, shop floor automation in terms of material movement, and so on. So those are the functions that a MES would typically provide. And then integration with the factory floor systems. That's, of course, one of the very important features that many of the MES systems provide. We are providing all the same features again. So at this time, Smart Operations delivers all those features through the cloud. But the decision of whether you need a standalone MES or can you just work with Smart Operations really depends on, say, the scope and complexity of the environment. So in certain manufacturing environments, which is highly specialized, extremely complex processes, the example, reentrant operations, reentrant manufacturing, for example, can become pretty complicated, and kind of driving something like that from the cloud. Or you have heavy usage of certain biometric information in certain life sciences environments, which requires a lot of local processing to be done, and they just have connectivity issues. Yes, absolutely. I mean, you would probably need a specialized MES, an on-prem system, for something like that. But our goal is to basically give you a cloud delivered MES that can scale itself, customize itself to a large variety of use cases. We are adding more and more capabilities as we go, but we feel that we are, for most of your standard industrial manufacturing use cases or consumer use product goods use cases, Whether it is discrete, flow, or process, we can match an MES and many of those capabilities, and you would not need a separate MES at that point of time. And the advantage, obviously, being that we can provide that real-time production monitoring, we can provide quality inspections and quality management, we can provide traceability, of course, amazing traceability, we can provide that AI and integration with factory floor with Litmus. So and that architecture can be easily replicated across all of your plants. So you have that harmonious architecture that we've always kind of struggled with.
Yeah.
So that's our pitch, basically. It's not a silver bullet, but at the same time, as we grow, as we add more and more use cases to this, we hope that we'll have a fairly broad coverage.
Yeah. And I think you covered this nicely. There is a segment of customers perhaps that is grappling with that dilemma that do I need one, or is
Yeah.
it too big for me, or can I afford it in standalone basis everywhere? And I think that coupled with Litmus's capabilities and integrations out of the box, there's a whole lot possibility that is now available to this segment. And of course, those who have MES, it also interoperates with that, right? So it's not like it's either this or that. It is a good combination of best of all of those when the situation is like that.
Yeah. And if you like, I can show a quick pictorial on how the integration works between Oracle and Litmus, since we're on that topic. So
Yeah,
let me quickly see if I'm able to share this.
I like it when we bring it to life.
Are you able to see my screen? This picture, is that coming up? Oh,
It's
there it is. It
on
took
your
a few minutes. But yeah, so since we're on the topic of real-time artificial intelligence, I thought maybe, because many of your audience tend to be quite technical, we could kind of show them a quick picture of how this integration actually works. So it's a very simple integration architecture, and that's one of the things I want to emphasize. The way this works is you have Litmus over here that is connecting to all the industrial devices over a wide range of industrial protocols. Well, pardon me for presenting Litmus over here, but it's a very interesting product, and you guys have hundreds and hundreds of industrial connectors over here. Feel free to elaborate on that. But they capture the data, they can filter the data, they can have amazing workflow builder that can analyze the data using AI. So they are the ones processing the information on the edge, and as I understand, they have a central cloud-based way of monitoring and configuring the system, so you can take the same workflow and replicate quite easily across many different systems, or have individual workflows depending on the environment. So basically, what we ingest from Litmus is not a real-time streaming data. Or rather, we are focused as an ERP, we are focused on events, as I mentioned. What we're looking at is business events. And the ability to send back commands. So Litmus has a built-in integration with Oracle, and this you can just easily configure a connector that basically says send these events over to Oracle Fusion Cloud, and we receive these events, and we have built-in business workflows. For example, things such as operation completion, operation stop, quantity reporting, quality inspections, and what have you for all work methods, again, for discrete process flow. And you can then drive a lot of these workflows from there, including equipment issues such as have a machine fault. So we drive a lot of those workflows on the back end, depending on the events in real time. So as an example, you have a production workflow running here. The PLC receives a signal that an operation has started on a particular machine. A Litmus sends us an event saying, the PLC is basically saying that this operation has started. We know which machine has sent it because Litmus sent us the ID of the machine. And based on that, we know what's running on it. So we contextualize that event to what's happening. And then we basically auto start the work order operation. Litmus sends us information about I completed a quantity, and maybe the quantity was completed by computer vision or by some simple optical sensor. We take that information and then again we update that information on our side. You may have backflush and other kinds of material issues that happen automatically. So we just do all of that stuff. Litmus can send us quality information as part of this. So there could be a harness that is doing quality inspections. We take that information and then we automatically update the quality inspection report. So a lot of the work that an operator had to do manually and would take a lot of time, potentially error prone because they have to input data manually by looking at gauges. We can automate all of that stuff, but at the same time, present all that information to the operator in real time. They're looking at that information, but they're not trying to just enter the information they can focus on their task.
Yeah.
So that's basically one way. And I guess, did it stop sharing?
No, I just went to a fuller screen. It's already
Oh,
here.
okay. So yeah, I'll stop at this point
Yeah.
sharing, but hopefully you get a picture of how this thing works.
Absolutely. I think, having integrated in the past, and of course, it's a great way to introduce it to our audience. But what we didn't yet talk about is that there's AI built in all those layers inbuilt, where it's not something that you have to worry about. But the agentic framework is also available for you now to add more experiences or more controls or more activities that you want to do. And that's what makes this whole architecture readily deployable. So great. Thank you for that, Jay. I know um, we are having a good conversation. The clock is also ticking, which is right. I want to just cover a few things, and I'll come to you, Will. I think this is related to what Jay just described, and maybe this is often a question about, but how do I decide what decision I leave on the shop floor and what do I send to the top floor or middle floor? Like, I don't want machine to dictate me all the time. This is what you got to do. I need to have that control and ability to run my shop floor with some level of flexibility. So, how do those decisions get designed in the process and flexibility as well?
Yeah, cool. Dick. We typically look at a couple of criteria. Probably the biggest one being around latency. Is how important is it to have a decision that might need to be made in milliseconds with local operators on the shop floor, and obviously that drives more of that edge intelligence. So we look at things around latency, particularly quality and safety, and we tend to want to push more towards the edge. But there's also tremendous benefit in some of the workflow Jay talked about, being able to combine it with their contextual data, the insight from that. Maybe you add a few seconds to that process in doing that, but being able to provide more contextual in a deeper understanding of the overall process and workflow that might benefit from a few extra seconds of analysis and presenting that to an operator about making other decisions. And so, an example might be where a piece of equipment gets an alert around performance, and it's certainly within a service window, but you also have a customer order. Turns out to be one of your most important customers, and the deliverable is end of day today. And so, do you push the equipment to complete the customer order, and it's a very profitable, important customer? Well, that's the context you want to provide to the operator to let them make locally. But you need to combine that with other contextual data. So we look at it and say, hey, if it's a millisecond decision around quality or certainly safety, we want to drive that at the edge. But if you benefit by adding other contextual data from other systems and make a more holistic enterprise, very customer-driven decision, yeah, there's some benefit in delaying that decision maybe by a few seconds or a few minutes. But we're always looking at that balance between edge and cloud.
Yeah, and that's Thank you for that, Will. I guess it's not one size fits all equation here that we're talking about. It's obviously infrastructure, the network, and manpower, or the organizational design. All those things are considered as part of the deployment and the architecture. Of course, as business then evolves, they can make changes if they want to make it. It's not fixed in stone for eternity in that sense. I think that's kind of what I'm hearing from this, and there's real control and flexibility available to the organization deploying these solutions. And just because there happens to be two standalone successful systems, Oracle and Litmus working together, there is also not a fight of who owns what. It is what the process requires. That is what is enforced or implemented pragmatically. I think that's kind of the summary I get from this. I have one question back to you, Rajeev. We have limited time left. There's so much I want to talk about because process manufacturing is been spoken about. So I'll take an offer to have another session on that itself because that is a fascinating topic in itself. But today, just about the partnership, and I think all of you have your thoughts. But from your perspective, Rajiv, how does this sort of Oracle, Litmus, and InspireXT working together, like what behavior changes um, will customers see, or what our teams will see? Because it's fundamental to what we are trying to do, and
Yeah.
in my view, it can't just simply be saying we deliver connected solution. It has to mean something fundamentally more to our customers. What do you see, or how do you
Very,
see that?
very quickly. I think the the combination of edge and the core, if you will, core from core, I mean the ERP, um, is faster decisions. I think the gap that we have seen over the years between IT and OT is reducing because of these technologies, having data available to immediately make decisions and being, and organizations probably become more flexible and elastic, if that's the right term, to make decisions based on the data and the intelligence. The personas, like the operators, have better control. I think somebody alluded to people entering data reactively rather than having and taking a look at it and making decisions and things like that. That's at the plant level and the operator level, but at the leadership level also, I think the intelligence at embedded intelligence and the AI at various levels. I talked about the descriptive intelligence, the predictive intelligence, and maybe a prescriptive intelligence is a game changer for organizations to be able to reduce that IT and OT gap. And at various levels, it could be plant level, it could be operators, it could be at the leadership level as well.
Great. Well, that's all I have time today. Um, I have a few more questions, but we will maybe have a longer session later. But if I were to summarize, or maybe I'll just ask Will and Jay if you have anything else to add before I summarize, anything that we think we wanted to say.
Thank you for the opportunity. This is great. As you said, this is a long conversation, and we really need to drill down into very specific areas to actually do justice to it. But I'm glad the conversation has started.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks, Kuldeep. I appreciate the opportunity. And for me, I think the optimism is really high. We've got way more opportunity ahead of us than what we've accomplished. So I think that's always exciting to me. So thanks again for today.
That's great. Well, I think a few key things that I'd like to summarize from my perspective or what I heard and understood. And I think first we talked about this pilot problem. I think you used a number, I used a number, but there is a big number, right? We're talking about 80, 90% not succeeding. And I believe this is now not anymore trying it or questioning it. It's more about kind of making that decision as to where do we embed it and getting to embed that there. And the second one really is the edge intelligence, the execution systems like Oracle, orchestration done by InspireXT. It's really about the value that is coming from being connected rather than being isolated. I think that is where the replication happens. That is where the scale happens. That's where the use cases get tested faster. Um, and the third and final one I'd say is the behavior change. That's often underestimated because we are dealing with technology and we think just by putting a new technology, things will change. Rarely does that happen. So there is a lot to do as leaders to embed this as a behavioral change in our organizations at the same time. And finally, this is not about ripping and replacing everything. This is about finding the right balance and making sure that that balance is then moderated through the right orchestration, etc. But thank you, Will. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Rajeev. It's been fascinating. Thank you for making the time and sharing your insights. And I look forward to continuing the conversation.